Everybody loves a supervillain, especially the flamboyant and charming ones. Although most would agree that it's the over-the-top novelty act spectacle that pushes them from being ordinary villains into a true super villain. It's all about
presentation!
But as entertaining as they are, there is a colossal flaw with all supervillains, and that is that a supervillain is ultimately self-defeating. It doesn't matter if they have the power of General Zod or the intelligence of Doctor Doom. No matter how skilled or powerful, all supervillains sow the seeds of their own defeat. And we're going to have a look at how they do this. Instant gratification. Now, a big problem with supervillains is that they want everything and they want it now. It's why a lot of them are stealing in the first place. I mean, their logic makes sense in a way. It's basically, why should I go out and earn money over a long period of time when I can just take it all now? The reason, of course, is because there's a justice system that hunts you, finds you, takes back what you've stolen, and then punishes you. But they just push this from their minds because they want stuff and they want it immediately. Now, they think they're smart or skilled enough that no one can catch them. But they only think this because their ego won't allow them to imagine that anyone is their equal. But that's not true. This is a bias on their part because they believe they're the best, and any data that contradicts that, they just dismiss out of hand. But what this means is that in reality, there are actually a lot of people who can stop them. They just ignore that because they don't want to hear it.
It doesn't work like that! Don't keep saying that to me!
So naturally, this leads to them being beaten up by the people who are better than them. And this leads us to pride. Now, this is a big one, because it's probably a supervillain's biggest weakness. They believe no matter what happens, they will succeed, that they are incapable of failure. And of course, the problem with this is pretty easy to spot. If you believe that you can't fail no matter what, well, then you'll always end up failing. A good example is Russian roulette. I mean, you'd have to be insane to bet all of your life savings on a spin of a roulette wheel, wouldn't you? Which is why none of us do it. But if you genuinely believe you could never fail, well, why wouldn't you bet all your life savings? Because it's not betting, you're going to win. And then when you do win, you'll just keep rolling and double your money over and over again, because you can't lose. Now, the problem with this is, outside of your imagination, you will end up losing everything. But if you don't believe you can fail, if you essentially reject reality, then this is exactly what you would do. I mean, anyone who can't fail would go and do this. It's the logical thing to do. It's why pride is so toxic. I mean, a small amount of pride is fine, obviously, it's a natural part of being human. But when it goes too far, it becomes as deadly as poison. And of course, pride is the cousin of gloating. Now, some would say that this is why most villains are defeated. In fact, in real life, there's actually been several serial killers who have never been caught. They got away with all of their crimes and their many, many murders. So what could they do? Well, naturally, they turned themselves in, because they wanted people to know about their crimes, and more importantly, how clever they were for having gotten away with it for all of those years. And in fairness, a lot of people do praise serial killers. I mean, not openly, of course, but there is a lot of admiration there. That's why there's so many documentaries about them. But still, these people are desperate for praise and gratification, so much so that they'll put themselves in prison for the rest of their lives. So basically, this causes a lot of supervillains to stumble and fall, because they just can't live without the applause. It's why so many Bond villains lose, because they gloat of their evil plan to James Bond, so then he knows exactly how to defeat them? Yeah, that was a good idea, wasn't it? I mean, most of us would think in this moment that we just wouldn't gloat. That's where they're going wrong. And for normal people, sure, that's fine. But the point of this video is, these are supervillains. And to them, this is an uncontrollable compulsion. One that we can never really understand, but to them it comes as naturally as breathing. And this is because they truly believe that they are untouchable. Supervillains genuinely believe that no one can take them down. Either because their plan is too good and they're so smart, or they just have too much power and skill to be taken down. But everyone who's ever watched The Godfather knows that this is not true.
If history's taught us anything, it says you can kill anyone.
Now, I think this is shown very well in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, when the High Evolutionary goes to Rocket and he gloats about his plan. He gloats about how he's going to kill Rocket and all his little friends, and that he's been lying to them all along and was always going to kill them, not give them the paradise he promised. And of course, the whole point of this is so that Rocket knows just how much smarter he is than him. So then Rocket beats the crap out of him and nearly kills him. Because gloating is not a good idea. Not until after the battle is won, anyway. I mean, that's shown perfectly in The Watchmen, when the bad guy waits until his plan is already underway before explaining it to the good guys.
Do you seriously think I'd explain my masterstroke to you if there were even the slightest possibility you could affect the outcome? I triggered it 35 minutes ago.
I mean, that is a genius thing to do because, well, you can't stop it, it's already happened. Now, of course, the High Evolutionary not only thought that he was untouchable, but also just had to gloat about his plan because he was feeling insecure, thanks to his childlike ego. You see, a supervillain does not have much emotional awareness and is most definitely not emotionally mature. They get rattled and offended easily, and they lose their tempers even more easily. And since Rocket had earlier proven how smart he was by seeing something that the High Evolutionary hadn't, well, naturally he had to go and prove his dominance of intelligence, and so he gloated about using and manipulating Rocket and his friends, which led to his defeat in this instance. It really is amazing how someone with so much wealth and power can be so fragile and weak-minded. But it is also very, very true to real life. This is shown with dictators, autocrats, and narcissists. For example, in 2017, Winnie the Pooh was banned in China. And this is apparently because the leader of the country supposedly looks like him and he's quite sensitive about it. Now, I know he's not technically a dictator, but he still has an insane amount of power, and yet is so sensitive about something that seems, quite frankly, silly to the rest of us. Also, I don't really see the resemblance myself, or for that matter, really understand what the problem is. I mean, in fairness, maybe if we lived in China, we'd understand their culture better, and then we'd get what the issue is. Or maybe not, who knows. And something similar also happened in Russia with Vladimir Putin, who took control of certain TV shows and got a show taken off the air because it featured a puppet who was him, and it wasn't a very flattering thing because, it's a comedy show about politics. But still, why on earth would someone who's got control of nuclear weapons, his own army, and more wealth than the rest of us can even begin to imagine, possibly care about this? Care about something that, quite frankly, is so inconsequential, I can't even believe I'm talking about it in the first place. And the fact that the only reason I am talking about it is because how ridiculous it is. I don't even know this show. I only know it in relation to the fact that he didn't like it and got it pulled off Russian TV. It's crazy. But my point is, this level of insecurity is very common with supervillains, and it can lead to them being defeated, and to them being easily manipulated. If someone's ego is so fragile that they're that insecure, well, then it's easy to get them riled up and bait them into a trap, isn't it? It's why so many stories have characters talking to the enemy. They want to rile them up so they make mistakes. I mean, my favourite example is probably Spider-Man, because he is constantly, throughout his entire career, making silly jokes at the villains. Now, this is to mock, ridicule, and annoy villains and make them lose their temper, because when people are angry, they make mistakes. And in his case, the jokes also help Spider-Man to relax a little in battle.
Sorry. I have a habit of making bad jokes in tense situations.
Now, the hero goading the villain is an infamous trope, because it works. It works in real life, it works in comics, it works in stories. This is just something that works. For some reason, these types of people are very easily rattled, riled, pissed off, made feel insecure, all of those things that most of us have mastered by the time we get into our 20s. I mean, don't get me wrong, we still feel them, but we don't lose our temper and go nuts because of it. And of course, when the supervillain does lose their temper, they don't blame themselves. No, they blame anyone else they can, especially their enemy or one of their underlings.
Go! No one likes a third wheel.
And this is because it's all about them. The reason a villain often ends up alone, or with only cult-like deluded types following them, is because of these temper flare-ups and blaming everyone else whenever something goes wrong.
She can't quit. She's fired. Can't have your stink rubbing off on me.
What?
Oh, don't worry. There's a generous severance package.
Now, in fairness, people can follow this type of person for a while, sure, but eventually they get sick of the abuse, the lies, and the lack of results, and they leave, usually violently. Short-term thinking. Now, this isn't true of all villains, I want to make that clear. In fact, Gus from Breaking Bad is one of the most infamous of bad guys, and in large part that's because he is patient and willing to demean himself in the short run in order to achieve greater results in the long run. But the reason this is infamous is because it's such an oddity. Most supervillains are incapable of long-term thinking. Or rather, they can think in the long term, very easily, but either their pride, their anger, or their greed get in the way of this, and instead, they just think short-term needs. I mean, think of the golden goose for this one. Everyone knows keeping the golden goose alive is a good idea. It will keep laying golden eggs for the rest of your life, and you'll have basically endless wealth. But a villain is literally the person who will kill it and cook it because they're hungry. Now, not all of them would, of course, but more than you think would. Their only concern is being king of the moment. That's all these people care about. I mean, they're essentially narcissists. For some reason, the moment's really important to these people. And it's easy to see why that would lead to defeat, because if you can only think in the moment and you can't think long term, well, you're going to lose no matter what you do, aren't you? I mean, you'd lose a game of Monopoly, wouldn't you? Let alone fighting a hero. And finally, there is one huge problem that's only really true of some villains, mainly the agents of chaos types. But their problem is, they don't want the fun to end. Now, characters like the Joker are the best examples. They don't want to kill the bad guy because without them, well, life would just be too boring. And this is because to them, the whole point is the fun. It's the chase. Now, most criminals, it's about getting something, stealing money or gold or whatever, something valuable. And that's the point, to get stuff. But for people like the Joker, it's about the adrenaline, the rush, the fun. It's about the fight with Batman. And without that, he has nothing. I mean, that is the whole plot of the film Megamind. The bad guy defeats the good guy at long last, and now he doesn't know what to do with his days. You see, his whole life was fighting the good guy, the most powerful man in the universe, a man he thought he could never really beat. I mean, he says he did, but come on, we all know that really he didn't feel like he'd actually win.
Did you think this day would ever come?
No way. Not at all, sir. Never. Never in a million. I mean, yes, I did.
But that has happened and he's won, and obviously now he's got no choice but to enjoy his retirement. Nah, just kidding. Of course not. Instead, he just gives some random guy Superman powers and then he goes and fights them instead. Because, he needs something to do with his days and he loves fighting people with Superman powers. And he can't even see why he shouldn't do this.
I think this is a bad idea.
Yes, this is a very wickedly bad idea for the greater good of bad.
But I'm saying this is a kind of bad that...
Now, the reason he can't see why he shouldn't do it is because he just loves the chase, and the chase is all he cares about. He's not really thinking it through, which again goes back to my points of supervillains being self-defeating. He's defeating himself here by pretty much everything on this list, plus the final one of he doesn't want the fun to end. Now, of course, this not wanting the fun to end isn't always the rule, but there are quite a few people like this, and it has led to their defeat on many occasions. And those are the reasons that supervillains are their own worst enemies. It's like a dictator whose cruelty plants the seeds of rebellion that eventually leads to him being overthrown. And just like a supervillain, they can't help it. They can't help being this way. And no matter what, they will get angry and inflate and implode, and everything will fall apart on them. And worse still, thanks to their narcissistic personality disorders, they will never realise or accept this. Not beforehand, not when it's happening, and certainly not after they failed. Even when they are confronted with it, they will simply dismiss it, because they believe they are perfect and a flawless individual whom can never be wrong. This is literally where the expression, they think their farts don't smell bad, comes from. I know that's not the exact expression, people in different parts of the world say it differently, but you get where I'm coming from. Basically, these people are so deluded that they can't see reality, and thus are unable to see their own downfall when it comes. Now, of course, there are more reasons why a supervillain can cause their own defeat, and if you can think of any of these, then please let us know in the comments, along with what you think of this video and whether you agree with my logic. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.